I'm in a bitchy, complaining mood again. And my hair's annoying, so you get hat. I think we're boned. I think we're boned. That's uh that's it. End of the video. We're boned. No. I feel like I look like a fucking fat fuck. I was thinking earlier today about the how do I put this? I was thinking about the kind of state of the country right now. And I think we're cooked. I think we're shafted, especially people my age. Can't buy houses. We we got the raw end of the deal here. We can't buy houses. The good jobs have all shored up and gone to China, and the ones that haven't are not coming back in at the rate they did during Trump's first term. We got all that shit in Minneapolis going on, and that's just like okay, whatever. People are taking up arms in the streets of Minneapolis, and it's like okay, whatever. And I don't have a problem with people taking up arms in the streets of Minneapolis. I did want to touch on that. How many of these pro-gun Republicans are like, "Oh yeah, pro-gun," and then as soon as the left takes up arms, they're like, "Well, they can't take up arms." Yes, the fuck they can. They have the same constitutional right that you and I have. Just because you disagree with them doesn't mean they can't take up arms. They have every right to protest with a firearm. They don't have rights. They don't have the right to kill people. They don't have the right to use the firearm in an offensive manner, but they have every right to take up their firearms and go protest, just like you do, just like I do. Fix that real quick. Um, what was I saying? Oh yeah, yeah. The there's this clip going around about this guy, and well, come on, there we go. This dude's going viral. This dude holding his AR, and why? The fuck do I care? He's got a decent looking setup. He's got an AR pistol with a dot, and I mean, I don't know, maybe he's got a chest rig under his coat. That's what I'd be running. I'd be if I'm to the point where I'm going to be rocking a rifle, though, I'd probably be a little bit more overt, and I would just run the chest rig on the outside of the coat. But you know, you do you. Um, and this dude's just standing there as a deterrent to ICE, which is completely legal. He's allowed to stand there and protest ICE. That's not against the law. But I see all these people on the right losing their minds, and they're like, no, he can't do that. Yes, he can. Yes, he can. 100% he can. And like the thing that kills me on the right here is they're like, well, this guy can't do this because oh, reason. And no one's like, wait a minute. So it's okay when Kyle Rittenhouse takes a firearm to Kenosha for self defense and goes and defends himself. Granted, yeah, he put himself in a dumb situation, but I'm not here for that. But Kyle was the poster boy for the right when he got involved in all that chaos and he used his AR in self defense. He was the poster boy. Everyone on the right was rooting for him. Even though he was in a place he probably shouldn't have been with a firearm, he probably shouldn't have been there. He probably should have gone home. Much like this other dude with this fat guy with the beard, uh, he's probably in a place he probably shouldn't be with a firearm, but he has a constitutional right to be there, just the same as Kyle had a constitutional right to be in Kenosha. Just the same as if I went to Minneapolis, I would have a constitutional right to carry a firearm while I'm there. You know, it's not a selectable right. You know what I mean? It's not like a light switch. So, well, there's leftists in the room, so we're going to switch that off. No, it's for everybody. That's this thing that the left seems to. seems to fucking forget is like, you know, I reposted that or quoted that or whatever the fuck, and I said this is legal. He's not committing a crime. He's just standing there. Standing with a gun is not a crime. But while we're watching Minnesota be burned to the ground, everyone's over here crying about Don Lemon maybe getting charged for storming into a church and causing some ruckus and interfering with people's worship, which apparently is a, I guess technically, yeah, that's a First Amendment violation, and there's an act. It's called the Faces Act, and I think it's called the Klan Act or the KKK Act, that says you can't interfere with people uh, while they're undertaking. I don't know if it's the First Amendment specifically or if it's any constitutional right, but basically, because Don Lemon went into this church uninvited and started causing chaos, they could criminally charge him with a felony, but they won't. And so we're at a point where even the right has said, well, it's just selective. It's just the laws in this country are just selective now. The right's gotten to a point where they say, Kyle Rittenhouse having a firearm at a protest, perfectly fine. Fat beard guy having a firearm at a protest, not okay at all. It's the legal system in this country has basically just become what team are you on, and I think it's been that way for a while. I think even when Kyle got arrested, I think it was there, and I thought Kyle was going to spend the rest of his life in prison. I really did. I did not have high hopes that Kyle Rittenhouse was going to get released. I was hoping and praying, but it wasn't. I did not think it was going to happen. I thought they were going to make an example out of him. I thought they were going to throw the book at him. So we can go all the way back to that. What was that, 2018, 2019, something like that? Hold on. What year was the Rittenhouse shooting? 2020. It was August of 2020. That's right, because it was the summer of love. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so August of 2020, Kyle Rittenhouse goes out, protests with a gun, ends up shooting three people legally, and the right says, yeah, 100%, this is legit. I guarantee you, if Fat Gingerbeard guy got attacked and he shot someone, the right would not defend him. The left would. I honestly believe that. The left would. I think that the Democrat Party would be like, this is exactly, this man was using his constitutional right perfectly to the T, the way he's supposed to, fighting against fascists. That's what I think. I think the headline would say, fascist defender against fascism arrested. I really believe it would say something stupid like that. Or man defending immigrants from ICE arrested. Some bullshit like that, right? It would say something stupid. We're at a point where the legal system is just which side are you on? If you're on our side, you're fine. If you're on their side, you're going to prison. I don't think we have a legal system in this country anymore. I think Minnesota is the start of the falling apart. I mean, we're seeing ICE agents getting jumped to the point where they're abandoning their vehicles, and then hooligans are breaking into the cars and stealing rifles. I I don't see where we. I don't see how we bring a peaceful resolution to this. And then you look at the fact that people under 45 can't buy a house, and you got a lot of people out there, myself included. I want to buy a house. I want to have children. I want to have land. And I'm almost 30. So if I don't get on that pretty soon, that window's going to close. Not so much for me, but for my wife. I've got maybe 10 years. And at that point, my children will be growing up with an old father. I will be the age of most children's grandfathers. Having children young is a great thing. I think that's something people should do. Now, I'm not saying 15-year-olds should be having babies. That's not what I'm saying. But, 18, 19, 20 years old, you're on your own, you're an adult, you're doing okay. Yeah, I think having a baby is a great thing. I think a lot of people would mature up real quick, and I think it would be good for marriages. I think that's one of the leading things when you look at marriage, even because I think marriage is cooked. I think marriage is just pointless at this point. But when you look at marriages, I think most successful marriages, those 50, 60, 70-year marriages, they came from we had babies and we had lots of babies because I think that's what we're supposed to do when we get married, right? Marriage is the point of marriage is to have babies. If you look at it biblically, the point of marriage is to make babies. You get married, you make babies. You get married at 18, say your high school sweethearts, whatever. You get married at 18, you used to be this way anyhow. You get a good job, maybe your wife works, maybe she doesn't. Couple years in, you guys have a baby, you're 20, 21 years old, you've got a baby. Well, now you got to grow up. You got to be a responsible adult. And I think a lot of people did, and I think a lot of people didn't. And I think that's kind of where the hippies went wrong. Is the hippies, they weren't responsible parents, and then you had the more conservative side that was more responsible parents. And I blame a lot of this shit on hippies, honestly. Kind of like Cartman. I just hate fucking hippies. Actually, that's not true. Honestly, I used to really hate hippies, but now it's like I'd rather hang out with the hippies. I was real big into rock climbing for a little while with my brother, and most of the people we were hanging out with were fucking hippies. We're fucking climbing rocks and hanging out with hippies, and it's like, man, this is kind of nice. People aren't fighting each other. They don't care about politics. You can disagree with these people. Like these are good people. And then, you look at the news and it's like everyone's trying to kill each other, it seems. But I think we're in a point where even that. Now, granted, I do think the hippies had children young and then went off to do whatever the hell they wanted and left the children with their parents or whatever. And yeah, I think that was a net negative. Yeah, I don't think that was good. I think that definitely led to a lot of shitty parents going forward when those kids grew up with absent parents. I just think we're at a point though where like there's no reconciliation, there's no middle ground anymore, and I don't know how we fix it. I don't know how we come back from this, right? The middle ground is gone. Okay, we saw that when Charlie Kirk got killed. And I said for a long time, we need September 12th. And if anything would have given us a September 12th moment, it should have been the assassination of Charlie Kirk, where everyone could have come together and been like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. We need to tap the brakes. Shit just got really real. We both need to admit that we're kind of screwing this thing up and we need to tap the brakes and slow down. But that's not what happened. The left doubled down, was like, hell yeah, do it again. And then they started threatening people like Tim Pool and Candace Owens. And then you got Candace, this fucking retard, who's over here saying Charlie Kirk was a fucking time traveler who was killed by his time traveling handlers. I don't like I don't even think she believes the shit she's saying at this point. It's gotten to the point where Turning Point USA has sent her a cease and desist, or sent another YouTuber a cease and desist, just because of the ridiculous shit that's being said about Charlie Kirk. And I really expected, because there's usually always good, even when there's something bad. There's some good that comes out of it, and the some good I was expecting was both sides to come together and be like, you know what, we disagree, but not to the point where someone should be murdered. We disagree, but we shouldn't be killing people. This isn't cool. And a big majority of the left was within a day wearing shirts depicting Charlie Kirk getting shot. it's I don't know, it's very demoralizing. And you've got a big group of people, especially people my age, that we don't have homes. We're renting. You know, I make no I make no secret that I rent this house off my mother. My mom owns the place. I rent it, and I just like I couldn't afford to buy a house because my job's shit, and all the jobs in my area, either they're an hour and a half away or they're garbage. There's no good jobs where I live, and well, when you drive truck, an hour and a half plus 14 hours. It's that 14, 15, 16, that's 17 hours a day. You can't really be working 17 hours a day. That doesn't, I mean, that's literally by the time you get home, you're going to bed, getting up and going back to work. I mean, and yeah, there's people that do it. My dad drives an hour each way to work, and he works a 12, 13-hour day almost every day. I mean, there's some days that he gets it done in 11. There's some days he gets it done in 10. But most of the time, between waiting on trailers and traffic and all the bullshit, he's working a 12-hour day at least. And I give him props because he's in his 60s and he's still doing it. And he's getting up at 3 a.m. to drive to work, to leave at 4. Oh, he's leaving his house at 3 a.m. I mean, so he's getting up 2 o'clock in the morning. And I mean, I give him all the credit in the world. But it's just him and his wife now. He doesn't have to worry about getting the kids to school. He doesn't have to worry about the things that us younger folks do. I mean, he doesn't have to worry about that stuff. And my brother, for example, my brother is up and gone at 4 a.m. And it's on his wife to get the kids to school. And I mean, the bigger kids, yeah, they do their thing, whatever. My other brother, he's coming home at 6 a.m. So he's making sure the kids are up and getting ready because they're all old enough to get themselves ready at this point. But like, it's he sees the kids for 15 minutes and then because he works midnights, he goes home and goes to bed. Like, and like, if you're not willing to kill yourself, like my dad and both of my brothers are, and even me, I've been working the past couple weeks, work's picked up, and it's been 10, 11, 12 hours every day, getting up at 4 o'clock to make it to work by 5, just rushing the whole morning away. Like, but it feels like no matter how much I rush to work, no matter how much I do, no matter how many hours I work, it feels like it's not enough to get ahead. If I worked these consistent hours, if I consistently work 10 to 12 hours a day every week for a year, I feel like I would never be caught up. I feel like I would never be able to buy a house, even if I could do it for 5 years straight. I just don't see how we buy houses. When you look at the price of a house, when you look at how much money you have to save for a down payment, it's like I don't know how people are doing it right now. I see people driving around in brand new trucks. I see people driving around brand new Cadillacs, and it's like, how? A van costs 50 grand. Like, vans used to be dirt cheap. You used to be able to buy a van for next to nothing, and then all these van life hippies took off on YouTube, and now everyone wants to build a fucking 4-wheel drive overland van, and like, you can't even buy a cheap van. Cars are expensive, houses are expensive, and I'm getting real tired of these Republicans. Well, Trump's fixing it. It just takes time. Well, yeah, Trump's fixing it. It just takes time. But what do I do in the meantime? If Trump fixes it, in 3 years, he might as well have not done anything, because if a Democrat gets into office, prices are just going to go right back up because they're just going to reverse everything he did. So what? I got a year, maybe, if it happens, then I can buy a new car, a house, and fucking get on my feet. Otherwise, I'm just sorry, you're on your own. All the good jobs around here, they're gone, or they're not being released by the boomers and the Gen Xers that are aging out of the workforce because they're not retiring. It just seems like we got a lot bigger issues than what's going on in Minnesota. And nobody wants to address it. Everyone wants to talk about Minnesota and Don Lemon. I couldn't care less what's happening in Minnesota or what Don Lemon did. I think a majority of people couldn't care less. I think a lot of people are waiting for this Minnesota shit to boil over and get real rowdy and start seeing more of this stuff popping up across the country. I'm waiting to see. I was on Facebook and someone I'm friends with had posted something about ICE being in one of the neighboring cities. And what they posted was completely wrong, saying, they need I think they said they need a judicial warrant, not an executive warrant. They said that executive warrants are not actionable. They can't use them. And it's like, well, yes, they can, because they're federal agents. They're not state police. State police need a judicial warrant, yes. Federal agents do not need a judicial warrant to remove someone from the country who is here illegally. And then they're putting this post out, and it's like, this post is going to get people killed. Your stupid Facebook post is going to get somebody killed because somebody's going to take your shitty advice, not understanding that what you're saying is not right, it's not true, and someone's going to get shot because they're going to fucking hit an ICE agent with a car. And then it'll be all over the news. Youngstown, Ohio, ICE riots are breaking out. Or it'll be, I don't know, fucking Toledo or Columbus or whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where it happens. It could be Tallahassee. It doesn't matter. It's gonna happen again because this narrative perpetuated by the left isn't stopping. They slowed down for 15 minutes after Charlie Kirk was murdered because of the narrative they push, because of the language they use. Charlie Kirk was murdered because the left has called everybody involved with the right Nazis and racists and fascists. And I mean, you pick the ist or the fucking phobic or the whatever. Pick the word that has the suffix of ist or phobic, and they've called us that for the things we believe in. And they call us that for just speaking. And then I started looking, I just started looking like, look at the movies that are coming out. There's nothing meaningful coming out anymore. Everything just seems so dark and grim and dismal. And I don't know if I'm just black-pilled at this point. But like, I watched the new movie Primate, and there's a scene where one of the girls is getting all pissed off, and she's like, "Well, don't you have a gun? That's what you do with sick animals, is you kill them." And the other girl is like, "He's not a sick animal. He's a part of the family." And like, the movie wasn't explicitly anti-gun or anything, but like, that scene just felt very animal rights, anti-gun. It just had that. And I don't know if that's me putting my bias into it, but because I look at things logically, right? So if you had a pet chimpanzee, understanding the strength and understanding what a chimpanzee can do to a person. If you own a dangerous pet like that, it's only logical that you own a firearm that's capable of dispatching that dangerous pet should something seriously go awry. Now, I do want to I do want to preface. I understand this is a movie and a horror movie on top of that, and it was a super fun movie, super fun movie. But it just, and that was the only instance where I felt there was anything mildly political. Everything else, I think the movie was really wonderful, and they did a really good job of staying out of politics. There was no politics in the movie except that one scene, and I don't know if it was me putting my bias in it or if it was supposed to be taken that way. As like, no, guns are bad, monkeys are friends. I don't know. But the gist of the movie, if you haven't seen it or heard of it, is this family has a pet chimpanzee. The chimpanzee gets rabies, and then he goes nuts and starts killing people. Um, it's it's a good movie if you want to spend an afternoon with friends, laughing and making fun of a good horror movie. It's perfect for that. I don't like horror movies quite often because my solution to most horror movies is a Glock. You can buy a used Glock for $350. Why do you not have one? You know, like that's my answer to most horror movies is why do you not have a gun? You know, unless it's something like a Wendigo or a paranormal kind of thing, in which case I'm just kind of like, I don't know, the odds of that are pretty low, and I don't logically I look at that and I'm like, yeah, that probably wouldn't happen, so I don't care too much about that situation. But when it's a feasible situation, when it's something that's plausible, like for example, the axe murderer in the woods. If you had a 45 on your hip, the axe murderer in the woods is at a real disadvantage. I'm just saying. But my point wasn't to get into axe murderers and horror movies. My point was even movies seem so bland now. They're so afraid to say something. A lot of video games have moved towards a voiceless protagonist because they're so afraid to say something that's going to piss somebody off. I just watched a video, well, I listened to it. Um, it was a Moist Critical video where in Florida, this lady made a post on Facebook, I think, and the sheriff or the it was Tampa City Police or something like that. I don't remember. Um, anyway, the cops came to her house and they asked her, did you post this? This is your name. Did you make this post on Facebook? And she's like, I'm not answering your questions without a lawyer, which good on her. 100%. That's the way to answer that. 100%. That is the way. Don't give these fuckers an inch because they will take a mile. And I know I'm sitting here saying ICE should be deporting these people, but don't give the local cops an inch because they'll take a mile. And yeah, and I understand that could be seen as hypocritical. I totally understand that. 100% I understand that. The difference is ICE is being used against people that are not citizens. Local police are being used against citizens for First Amendment issues because she posted something that might upset somebody. I'm not kidding. That's what the officer said. It might upset somebody. So you're here investigating this woman because she said something that might upset somebody? That's not how this country works, my guy. This country is supposed to be offensive. We are a nation of offensive. We went to the crown and we said, you want to tax us on tea? Tax this dick. And we fought a war over a tax on tea, right? Now we sit here and we watch people arm up in the streets and threaten to murder ICE agents. And we say, oh, yeah, no, that's okay. We're not going to stop them. But then we lose our shit when Kyle Rittenhouse defends himself from a fucking pedophile. I mean, one of the dudes was a pedophile, and I think the other two were domestic abusers, or maybe two were pedophiles, one was a domestic abuser. I mean, Kyle Rittenhouse couldn't have picked better people to shoot, if we're being honest here. Let's be real about it. Kyle Rittenhouse, if there were any better people to shoot, Kyle missed them. They weren't there. I don't know who's better to shoot than a pedophile or a domestic abuser. I don't know anyone who disagrees with that sentiment. I don't know anyone who says, yeah, no, pedophiles shouldn't be shot. Everyone I know agrees that if you're a pedophile, you deserve a bullet. Everyone I know agrees that if you're a domestic abuser, you deserve a bullet. You're a piece of shit. You're subhuman trash. And that's who Kyle Rittenhouse shot. And to this day, people like my mom believe that Kyle Rittenhouse shot black people. Everyone he shot was white. Everyone involved was white. To this day, people like my mother, had I not told her that's not true and made her look it up for herself, would still to this day believe that Kyle Rittenhouse shot black people. Because she still to this day believes that Donald Trump called Nazis white supremacists very fine people. Even though I've offered to show her the whole clip, she won't hear it. And I'm not going to force her to. You know, it's just, we live in a world where there are two completely different medias. There's two completely different stories going on in the news, going on in the media. Nothing is what it seems anymore. AI is taking all the jobs that are, secretary jobs, cashier jobs. It's all AI now. It's all fucking clankers taking over, and we're losing our jobs to the clankers. And that's something that I was talking to my mother about. My mother is like, I don't understand why you're having financial problems. And I'm like, because work is insanely inconsistent. And when I am making money, when I am working, that work might only last for a month. So because work's inconsistent, I'm kind of shafted. And it's hard to find a new job because so many things are having AI implemented. And so to find a job that pays what I need to be paid or in the pay range that I need to be in is getting harder and harder because half the job's done by AI. So they want to pay half the amount. Like, and I guess some people would argue, well, you could, if work's inconsistent, yeah, you could take half the pay and at least it's consistent. At least you can set a budget. Yeah, I guess. That's a fair argument. But I have a long resume because for a long time I couldn't hold down a job because I was a piece of shit. I was a fucking young, hot headed kid and I didn't want to hear what you have to say. And I would get all riled up and rowdy and fuck you, I quit. And I would leave and I wouldn't come back. And so, yeah, I've got a long resume. A lot of jobs I quit, a lot of jobs I got into scraps with people and I got fired. And, it was a thing. I jumped around a lot. And so I'm trying to remedy that. I'm trying to fix that. But it ain't working in my favor right now. And I knew that it wouldn't at some point. I knew that I would have to fix it. And I knew I was gonna have to eat a shit sandwich at some point. But it seems like this shit sandwich I'm eating right now don't mean nothing because it's like I'm looking at the menu for the next indefinite amount of time and it's just shit sandwich every day. And it's like, I knew I was going to have to eat some shit sandwiches for a couple years because I fucked up my work history, I fucked up my resume and I fucked up my driving record and like, yeah, I was like, okay, so I'm going to have to sit back and eat some shit sandwiches. I know it. I know I'm going to have to eat some shit sandwiches. It is what it is. I'll eat the shit sandwiches. I'll make it right. I'll fix it, and I will move on. And yeah, it's just been shit sandwich after shit sandwich, and it just doesn't seem to get any better. It really doesn't. And then I look at the political landscape and it's a shit sandwich. Well, it's more than a shit sandwich, it's a shit buffet. I just don't know where we go from here. And it feels like we're in a state of limbo. You know, I like to listen to podcasts when I drive, and I like to listen to more talk shows, I guess. So, like, I'll listen to Garantham talk about a firearm, or I'll listen to Garantham explain evasion in an urban area versus evasion in the mountains, and I'll listen to those kind of things while I'm driving. And I was listening to a Dirty Civilian video. Oh, I listened to a bunch of them today, actually. I was just on a Dirty Civilian rant or a Dirty Civilian marathon today. And one of the things they were, one of the things they said is, and this is from a while ago, people that want the Civil War to kick off have never experienced real violence. They've never seen an actual civil war in person. They've never seen real violence. And I understand the sentiment. I understand what they're saying. I've never been involved in a civil war. I've never fought an actual war. I'm just a guy. But there's part of me that's like, can we just get it over with? Just burn it all to the ground so I don't have to hear about it anymore. Just like, you know, fuck it. Let them do whatever they want. Let the shit hit the fan so that I don't have to hear about it anymore, so that I don't have to deal with it, so that I can talk about the shit that I want to talk about, so that I can talk about the things that matter. Everyone loses their shit because, oh, Trump's on the Epstein list. If you can find one piece of evidence that proves that Trump did something with an underage girl, put him in prison. Flying on the plane is not a crime. If you can find one piece of evidence from the Epstein list that proves that Trump did something illegal or that Trump was with an underage girl, put him in prison. I'm on board for that. 100% on board for that. If you can, but here's the thing, a lot of people say, oh, Trump won't release the Epstein list because there's Saudi princes on it. And Trump's trying to get the Saudis back on the petrodollar, which I think is true. I think that's a big part of it. But Trump ran on, I'm going to give you the Epstein list. Now, my personal opinion is the Epstein list is long gone. You and I will never see it. There was an original copy at one point that has been completely destroyed, and we will never see it. You and I will never know the extent of who is actually on that list. That list is so far gone, we'll never see it. It's been edited, deleted, shredded, whatever they did with it, it's gone. The only thing we have left is the redacted version, the edited version. And so I say, fuck the Epstein list. We're never going to get the truth. We just have to accept it. Just like with JFK. We're never going to get the truth on what happened with JFK. Now, I believe the truth is the CIA. I think the CIA and or the mob, they did a hit. Whether the CIA hired the mob, whether the mob went to the CIA and were like, hey, we're going to do this and you're going to turn the other way because I know he's a pain in your ass too, or whether they paid people off. I mean, I don't know, but I've watched the Zapruder film enough and I've seen enough people get shot. And I've seen enough people die. And I've seen how the human body reacts when a bullet strikes it. When you first see Kennedy get hit and his head whips back, that is indicative that he got shot in the face, not in the back of the head. That is, you know, 99 times out of 100, that round hit him in the face, not the back of the head. And, he hit his head and bounced and slouched back over. Yeah, of course. 99 times out of 100, that round entered his face. I don't believe there was one gunman. Maybe Lee Harvey Oswald was there. Maybe Lee Harvey Oswald decided that he wanted to kill the president. I don't think Lee Harvey Oswald landed the killing blow, the killing round, whatever you want to say. Also, the guy sitting in front of him that had a bullet lodged in him and the bullet was completely intact. Literally looked like someone just picked up a bullet out of the factory, just the bullet, and was like, yeah, this is the one that did it. No fucking way. Bullets do not just go through stuff and not deform. They hit things and they deform. And the amount of bones that they claim this round hit to not have even a single dent, yeah, it's bullshit. It is bullshit. I don't remember where I was going with that. Oh, yeah, the files. So we sit here and we bitch and we complain and we fight with each other about the Epstein list or the JFK files or whatever. I think we all know deep down we'll never get the truth. Never will we get the truth. Um, I think that deep down we all know we'll never have the truth on Kennedy. We'll never have the truth on Epstein. And I think people keep making videos about it because they're pissed. And they know we're never going to get it. But they're just so pissed they can't let it go. Because it's like, dude, you told me this wasn't going to be a thing. You told me you were going to let us know exactly what was in these documents. You were going to let us know exactly what happened here. And then you just spit in our faces and said, fuck you. And then you gave us the whole list was redacted. The whole Epstein file was redacted. And that's what you gave us. Like, what is this bullshit? I didn't vote for this bullshit. I voted for transparency. And yeah, that's something I watch a lot of Moist Critical when he talks about this. And his biggest gripe every time is this is supposed to be the most transparent administration in history. That's what Trump ran on. Now, I don't know if Charlie's a Republican or a Democrat. I don't care. I enjoy Charlie's content regardless. I am a big fan of Moist Critical, and I have been from day one. I think he's a funny dude. I think he would be super fun to hang out with. I really enjoy Moist Critical. I don't care if Charlie's a Democrat or a Republican. If somebody put me in touch with him and we became friends, I wouldn't care. I would ask him out of curiosity, but I wouldn't care what he said. Because what difference does it make? He's putting out the message. He's saying the same shit I'm saying. He might be a little more harsh on the administration than I would, but I mean, Charlie and I can both agree that Pam Bondi's a fucking moron. And it seems like that doesn't happen anymore. We can't agree on things at all with anyone that doesn't wear our fucking team's color. It's either red or blue, and if it's not, then we're gonna fight. And it's like, hey, Charlie might be the biggest Democrat on the planet, and he says Pam Bondi's a moron. And I'm like, yup, that bitch dumb. I don't like Pam Bondi. I think she's an idiot. I think she was an awful choice from day one. I think Pam Bondi's a moron. And I've thought Pam Bondi was a moron for a long fucking time. And I've said that Pam Bondi's a moron multiple times on here. I have no problem saying I think Pam Bondi is an idiot. 100%. That being said, Charlie criticized Dan Bongino. And I think he was wrong on that. I think he was wrong on Bongino. I think he probably didn't follow Bongino and probably didn't know that Bongino was a cop and was Secret Service. And, because I think he said that Dan wasn't qualified to be the assistant director to the FBI. But it's like, no, Dan's qualified. For sure, Dan's qualified. But it doesn't even seem like we can have that conversation with people. Like, I don't think, now Charlie maybe, but some random leftist? No, you can't have that conversation. And we're so busy engaging in this back and forth with everybody we see screaming at each other, trying to fucking kill each other in the streets, like the little twink that shot Charlie Kirk. We're so busy doing that shit that we look right past each other. And we don't look at the things we agree on. We're so busy looking at the things we disagree on. We don't look at what we agree on. And I think we're in a dangerous spot because I think there's a lot of people on the left that want to see the right destroyed. I think there's a lot of people on the right that want to see the left destroyed. The right's destroying itself. I mean, if you're on the left, this is the best thing. Charlie Kirk's death was the best thing that could have happened for the left because as soon as Charlie died, Candace started her retard bullshit and just started driving a wedge into the right. And then you've got the retard right, these just morons like Nick Fuentes, who says just off the wall shit just for lols. And it's like, I don't think Nick Fuentes believes half the shit he says. He just does it because it pisses you off. And it's like, you're dumb enough to keep letting him piss you off, and he just keeps trolling you. I really don't know if Nick Fuentes believes that women shouldn't be allowed to vote. I really don't know if he believes that. He probably said it one time to be edgy, and people were like, oh, fuck, this guy's an idiot. And he rolled with it, and now he's like, yeah, no, bitches shouldn't be allowed to vote. I believe women shouldn't be allowed to vote. I 100% believe that. Women don't vote logically. Women vote with their feelings, and I don't think that's a good way to vote. Most of the women I've talked to about political issues will not vote, or they don't know what they're talking about. I've asked a lot of women, if you didn't have your right to vote, but your man could provide for you on a 40-hour work week, he didn't have to work 50, 60, 70 hours a week. He could provide for you on a 40-hour week, a good job, 2 weeks vacation. You could live in a nice house, own 2 cars. You could afford to have children. Like, you'd be living above the poverty line. You'd be living above the just getting by line. You'd be living a life of comfort. You're not going to be millionaires, but might make 60, 70, 80,000 a year, and you could live comfortably on that. Would you give up your right to vote? And most women that I've asked this to have been younger, and one of the things they ask is, well, what about abortion? And so I tell them, just for argument's sake, it's not illegal, but it's unthinkable. People don't generally do it because it's frowned upon, but it's not illegal. Would you give up your right to vote? And almost unanimously, they say yes. The only thing women vote on is abortion. Because they don't ask about anything else. They don't ask, well, how much does gas cost? They don't ask, what about guns? The only thing they ask about is, well, what about abortion? So why do we let them vote? If the only thing they're worried about is abortion, why do we let them vote? Why do we let them vote on anything other than abortion? I agree with Fuentes when he says women shouldn't vote. I agree that women are very emotional creatures, and that's fine. That's the way they're supposed to be, because we as men are very fact-based creatures. We're very logical and fact-based most of the time. You have men that were raised by women that are very emotional, and I'll fully admit, I was raised by my mother for a good period of my life, and there's been many times where I've handled things emotionally and not fact-based. It took becoming a man and being around men that are like, bro, stop losing your shit and figure it the fuck out. We don't have time for you to be screaming and throwing things. We have a job to do. Do I still get pissed off and scream and throw things? Occasionally, yeah. But did it take men in my life saying, dude, we don't got time for that bullshit. I don't got time for you to get all pissed off and throw something and break a tool, and now I got to go to the fucking Harbor Freight and buy another drill because you tossed your fucking drill and broke it. Now you got to go buy another drill. We got shit to do. We're busy. Cut it out. And it took some of that. It took a little bit of that because there was a point where, and it wasn't, my mother wasn't like, hey, be emotional and lose your shit. No, I had temper issues, and I saw that, my mother, being a single mother, had some emotional outbursts from time to time. And when she got overwhelmed and had emotional outbursts, I just kind of assumed that's what people were supposed to do. Now, my dad also had a temper, and so he would get mad and throw things and shit. So I saw both of them doing the same thing, and I was like, well, yeah, that must be what you do when you get angry. You have emotional outbursts and throw things. And no, you don't. Spoiler alert. So if you do that, try not to. But I've come a long way since, 14, 15 years old, punching holes in walls because I got shot in Call of Duty, to, you know, do I still get mad and throw things? Yeah, I do sometimes. My heater shit the bed and I got mad and threw it out the door. But I didn't, you know, blow a hole in the wall with my fist. I just chucked the heater out the door. I don't know. It just seems like everything's falling apart. So, like, what's the point? I don't know. I think I'll leave it there, though. This is an hour of me chattering about nonsense, so I'll probably leave it there. That's all I got. Bye.